Good morning, everybody. Bill Wang here, along with my partner in crime, Oliver EK, back with another episode of Ikigai Essentials Podcast. It's been a while. I think it's been a couple months almost. I actually just got back from Taiwan. I was there for 6 weeks. I think Oliver's been busy with his summer and kids and all of that. But we're glad to be back and apologize for the delay here, but we're kind of getting back into it and starting up this podcast again. So today we're going to focus on something kind of geared around my trip. Like I said, I was in Taiwan for about 6 weeks. I was there with my family. We pretty much went about a week or so after my kids got out of school. Spent a lot of time out there with my family. Kind of explored the island. And actually took a little side trip to Koh Samui, Thailand, just to kind of unwind and get away from reality as well. And during that time, I had a lot of time to kind of reflect and think about all the things and stuff that's going on in my life. And I think at the end of the trip, I actually started thinking about this on the plane ride back on July 18th from Taipei to one of the LA airports. I started thinking about and kind of reflecting on my trip. There's actually 3 points that I've kind of experienced or realized while I was overseas. And I'll kind of start with that. And Oliver, if you want to chime in anytime, feel free. I'm just kind of going to ramble on and get our discussion going here. The first thing I kind of thought about was actually really beneficial to my mental health, and hopefully it helps others as well, is for those 6 weeks, I felt like this was probably one of the first times I was able to kind of unplug from the real world. What I mean by that is, I still had internet over there at the place where we're staying. I still had my phone and my laptop, and I was checking up on things periodically, but I actually turned off my US cell phone for most of the time there. To be honest with you, I didn't want to pay for data roaming charges. I kind of wanted to experiment with the fact that, hey, if I'm not so glued to my phone all the time, what benefits or impacts that may have on my life. And for the first week, it was tough. I was so tempted to turn my US line back on. I was so tempted to pull up my phone and just check my text messages and emails and whatnot. But to be honest with you, as the days went on, it was less and less frequent. Wasn't really motivated to look at my phone, to be honest with you. And I think it kind of gave me the opportunity to focus on other things that were around me. Those few things were really, spending time with my family and my kids, going around Taipei and just exploring. Not really knowing where I'm going because I'm not too familiar with the area, but just kind of taking the whole mindset of, wherever the wind leads me, that's where I'll go. And that kind of turned out for the good. There are several times where, my wife and I and the kids, we weren't sure what we're going to eat for dinner. We weren't sure where we're going to go for the day, what our plan was. We didn't really have an agenda. But at the end of the day, we fulfilled a lot of things. We accomplished a lot of things. We went to a bunch of new places, new restaurants, new stores, new areas that we've never explored. And we weren't really planning that. But like I said, the wind kind of just led us in that direction. And being able to unplug, it kind of made me realize that, there are more important things than following up on text messages or emails or phone calls. Those things aren't that important, to be honest with you. There's other things like speaking with the locals there. I met a lot of cool people there. There's a restaurant we went to like every day for breakfast, like 4 lovely ladies who work there. They're older, but they've been there for a long time. I spent a lot of time chatting with them. I spent a lot of time getting to know them. They spent a lot of time getting to know me too, and my background and my family. So those little things really made a huge difference and kind of had a positive impact on my life here. That's the first bullet point that I was thinking of, is just, it's always good to unplug. And I hope I can do that a lot more in the future.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. So I guess my question would be, do you think there's a way to kind of do maybe like a modified version of that now that you're back here?
I think so. And one thing that I'm going to actually start playing around with is, I use an iPhone. I'm not sure if you do, Oliver, or not. I think you're on Android. Well, actually, you're an iPhone too. But there's a lot of things you can do, like I can schedule my phone to silence notifications for X number of hours throughout the day. I could put it into a different focus mode where I don't get interrupted. And I think that's one thing I really want to try. Just try to limit myself being so glued and attached to my phone.
And how did that make you? I guess like how did you feel? Like the classic therapist question, like how did it make you feel? Like not being on your phone as much.
A little anxious at first,
Yeah.
a little nervous at first, to be honest with you. I felt like my
Nervous that
life
you're
is,
like missing out on something, or nervous
yeah,
about?
yeah, I feel like I'm missing out on things. But in retrospect, as I look back, these aren't life altering events that happen, right? There's people who text me about random things. I don't need to respond immediately. There's emails or phone calls that, aren't that important, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but how about okay? So thinking about like Taiwan and Taipei specifically, like I guess like the people there, did you notice a difference in terms of were people like on their phones like all the time, like out and about, like they are here, or what kind of difference did you notice?
I feel like they're on their phones more than they are out here, to be honest with you. There's so many times I'm walking around either to the subway station, walking to my destination. I would say, man, 75, 80, 85% of people, majority of them being younger folks, are just glued to their phones. There's so many times where I had to actually mention to somebody, hey, excuse me, can you just, stop looking at my phone? You almost ran us over. You almost ran my kids over while crossing the street. I feel like that there people are on their phones more than they are here in the US, to be honest with you.
Hmm, interesting. And then I guess like to get a sense for people who aren't familiar with you were in Taipei the whole time, and then
Correct.
you went
Most
to
of the time in
Thailand. Okay.
Taipei. Yep.
So like what I guess like what is there like a city like a U.S. city equivalent to Taipei like in terms of like population and like density? Is it?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's similar to kind of like LA, to be honest with you. I feel like there's just people everywhere, cars everywhere, traffic's crazy. The only difference really is I feel like there's way better public transportation in Taipei than versus LA. And obviously, it's not as spread apart and big as LA, but I just felt like it has a similar vibe.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Cool. And then what about your kids? I mean, did they like bring their iPad or whatever, or were they kind of disconnected as well?
They did, but I noticed, and I actually proved it as well. Like I tracked their screen time and number of hours they're on per day. It reduced significantly. Partly
Just
because we were
naturally.
kind of naturally, yeah, partly because we were kind of out most of the day. We were running around, meeting family and friends and whatnot. But even when they were home, I felt like they found other things to do. When we came back to the U.S., they've been kind of getting back to the normal, being on their iPad and screen time a lot more. But for example, in Taipei, there was a bunch of other things they were doing. One thing that they were introduced to by their cousins is, I think it's called a Diablo, one of those big yo-yos. It's probably the size of a football, I guess you could say. But they learned how to do that, and their cousin's mom bought them a set to bring back, and they've been learning new tricks. They've been still on their iPad watching YouTube videos on how to do those things. But during the time in Taiwan, they were actually spending, hours just playing around with that toy, with that Diablo and that yo-yo, and trying to learn new tricks. So I just felt like naturally their screen time decreased while being over there.
Okay. Cool. What about like their kind of like state of mind? Did they seem happier in general, or same, or what
Absolutely.
do you think?
The former, they were happier. And I think really is one thing that I've noticed, and they actually expressed to me as well, is they just felt like it's way more efficient being there than in the US. One example was, there was times where it was kind of rainy and monsoon season was coming along, so we didn't go out as much during that time, but we ordered a lot of food from Uber Eats. Number one, it's just so much cheaper. Number two, it's just so much faster. It's just way more efficient than dealing with things here in the US. And then also coming back here, the first few days I had to go to the bank, had to go to the supermarket, had to run a bunch of errands that I had to catch up on. And sometimes my kids would come with me and they're like, man, things just take a lot longer here. You have to explain to these people 2, 3 times just to get one simple task done. And they would always say, like, man, in Taiwan, it just be like so efficient. You just have to say it one time, explain it to them once, and they would just get it done. So I just felt like their mindset was a little bit different out there. They kind of were experiencing things differently than they were what they're used to being out here.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, yeah. Why don't we move on? So you said you had
Yeah.
3 points. So that was the first one. So how about the
Yep.
second one?
Yep. The second thing I would say is stepping out of my comfort zone. What I mean by that is, for example, being here in the U.S., I get in my car, drive somewhere, whether it's 5 minutes away or 30 minutes away. I just get from A to B within minutes. But being in Taiwan, it was different. I actually got my international driver's permit. I brought it there just in case. My cousin even offered their car, but I refused. I just didn't want to drive in Taipei because there's so many cars, so much traffic, so many motorcycles, so many pedestrians, crossing the street and all that. I wasn't comfortable with driving. But I actually felt like I had to step out of my comfort zone a lot. There was times where, for example, one thing is I still went to the gym out there, but it wasn't as easy as getting in my car, driving to the gym 10 minutes away, getting out of my car, working out for an hour, getting back in my car and going home. It wasn't that easy. I had to actually either walk to the gym, which is like 20, 25 minutes away in like sweltering heat, or I had to get in a taxi, or I had to get on the subway to get to the gym. And then even from there, I still had to walk to the gym. I still had to go and pay for a gym session there. I still had to, do my workout there and afterwards figure out how I would get home. So I wasn't used to that at first, and I was getting a little anxious and frustrated, and that kind of actually, made me kind of lose my motivation to go to the gym for the first few days. And then afterwards, I kind of started thinking to myself, is you know what, this is kind of an exercise on its own. Me walking to the gym, that's kind of my cardio for the day. Me getting to the subway will actually give me experience to kind of get more familiar with the roads and the area around Taipei. So just stepping out of my comfort zone actually made me realize that, you know, it is good to kind of unplug. It is good to not be so reliant on your vehicle and the comfort that you're used to back at home. You kind of have to adapt to the environment that you're in. And I think that actually helped a lot because towards the end of our trip, instead of getting an Uber or a taxi the easy way out to our destination, we would actually just walk over there. Whether it be, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we didn't really know the direction. We'd follow Google Maps and all that. And we would actually end up walking to our destination. And the good thing about that is while walking there, we would find new areas to explore. We would find new restaurants, new shops, and new places to go to. And I guarantee, if we were on a taxi getting there, we would not have that opportunity to see that. So that kind of gave us the opportunity and flexibility per se to kind of explore new areas because we got out of that comfort zone that we're so used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like, how about your language abilities? How are those?
It's gotten better while being there, to be honest with you. Like at first, going there, I was really kind of nervous, I guess you can say, to start speaking Chinese, because I, being in the US so long, I don't have the environment and opportunity to speak as much. But the first few days or the first week there, I was a little reluctant to speak. And I would always kind of start by saying, "Oh, excuse me, my Chinese is kind of bad, but ABC." I would start my dialogue with them that way. But after a while, I stopped saying that, and I started, thinking to myself, "It is what it is. They'll understand what I'm saying. It's not going to be perfect Chinese, but at least I can get the point across and have a solid conversation with them." So it improved significantly and kind of boosted my confidence while being there over the last few weeks.
So I guess so getting out of your comfort zone, like what kind of benefits do you think you notice in terms of like your mental well being or just whatever? What kind of benefits do you think you've noticed?
I think I just kind of said it there. Is it really boosted my confidence. It kind of made me feel like I can adapt to whichever environment I'm in. Kind of like a chameleon, right? You adapt to certain environments. You start blending in a little bit better. You're not worried about what other people think about you and your appearance and your language abilities and all those things. I just kind of started fitting in naturally, and I feel like I can do that elsewhere.
Hmm. So you think that will help you, like in general, in life
I
here?
think so. I
Okay.
hope so.
What are some things that you think people here could do, like maybe that don't have, maybe they don't have the opportunity to go to a different country, or are there
Hmm.
ways that you think people can incorporate that in their daily lives?
Yeah. For me, and I hope it helps others as well, is don't worry about what other people think. Like I mentioned earlier, I had doubts and concerns about my Chinese speaking abilities. I would always start off by telling them, hey, sorry, my Chinese is a little rusty, but, then go from there. But I kind of realized at the end is they're probably not even worried about how I speak or how my accent is and how I'm, not pronouncing these words correctly and all of that. They're probably more focused about their family, their job, their day, or whatever's going to happen. Um, People don't even care. So why should I even care what people care about? So hopefully, people will take that advice and kind of realize that just focus on yourself, just do what you got to do. Don't worry about what other people think.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. And then the third thing. Let's talk about the third point that you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this one was kind of really hit home for me is if things are meant to be, it'll happen naturally. And the two things that I kind of thought about with this point here is, as I mentioned earlier, I was really nervous and anxious about getting my citizenship in Taiwan. I found this Reddit forum that kind of explains step by step what to do. I followed that to the T. There's a lot of prep work that I spent prior to my trip. There's a good amount of expenses that I had to incur to get my passport, to get paperwork done, to get documents translated in Chinese and all that. I felt like I followed everything to the T and everything was ready to go. But when I was on my way to those appointments and those offices, when I arrived in Taipei, anxiety started kicking in, doubt started kicking in. I just felt like, okay, what if they deny me? What if I'm missing a document? What if I can't speak correctly? Or I don't understand what they're saying? What if it's going to impact my citizenship? And as I started speaking with a bunch of the ladies and the people there who were helping me throughout this process, things just happened naturally. I didn't have to worry about filling out applications in Chinese because a lot of those people actually helped me fill those out. I didn't have to worry about if I'm missing something, a document or whatnot, because even if I was missing something, they would always provide suggestions and feedback to me on what else or I could provide to fulfill those requirements. So I just felt like things just kind of naturally worked out. If it's meant to be, it'll naturally work out, and that's kind of how what I experienced. And another thing that I don't know if you guys all know, but my cousin passed away on April 23rd in the LA area. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, survived 5 weeks, just a fast and sudden death. And prior to that trip, I was really still down and sad about the situation because he's like an older brother to me. I grew up with him. He used to watch over us as kids. He actually lived with us in our time in Spokane while growing up. And I just remember last year I told him, I was like, man, when we have the opportunity, let's all go to Taiwan and hang out. Myself, him, and his younger brother, my two cousins that I grew up with, that I consider brothers. Fast forward to a year later, he didn't make it. We'll never have that opportunity to go there to reunite in Taiwan. But something interesting kind of happened this trip. I feel like again, it's kind of what was meant to be. Second day we got there, we went to go get our haircuts. I told the cab driver the wrong address because my Chinese is not that good. So we ended up maybe like 3 blocks away from the place where I was supposed to get our haircut. And then while walking there, keep in mind, it's like 90 degrees out there, 95% humidity, it's hot, we're sweating, trying to find a way to the hair salon place. And then walking there as we approached, we saw this flower shop up there and this main road, the popular road in Taiwan, in Taipei. The sign was above the streets. And it was actually my cousin's Chinese name, like his little exact
Hmm.
writing or exact spelling of his Chinese name. And that, I stopped, took pictures of it. I kind of cried a little bit, thought about him. but I just felt like it was meant to be. You know, I really miss my cousin. I really wish that he was there with me, whether it's this trip or a future trip, but that, you know, that won't happen. But I felt like it was just meant to be that we got to the wrong place. We had to walk 2, 3 extra blocks to get to the haircutting place through the heat. It was meant to be that, you know, it was a sign from him saying that he's there with me, that he's kind of watching over us, and this is kind of our time together. So that was kind of the main point that I was thinking about is if things are meant to be, it will happen naturally. Don't stress about it. Don't think about it. You know, when you least expect it, it'll be there.
It's interesting because I mean, it sounds like the sign that you saw with your cousin's name on it. It sounds like I mean, if the first 2 points didn't exist, then maybe you never would have seen that sign either. So like because
Sure.
like if the first point, like if you were like if it was here, maybe you would have been on your phone or looking down
Definitely.
or doing something. Maybe you would never noticed it. Getting your haircut in a different country, there's a certain amount of getting out of your comfort zone to even do that.
Definitely.
So it feels like the first 2 points like lead perfectly into the third point, and you probably wouldn't have seen that sign if it hadn't been for the first 2 points. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Absolutely. And that's a good point because honestly, I probably would have been looking at my phone, trying to figure out where to go or call somebody to find the right location. I probably would have just jumped on a taxi, or if I had my car, I would have just drove 2, 3 blocks to the haircut place and missed that sign for my cousin. So that's actually a really good point.
Yeah. So yeah, that's no, it's really interesting. You spent see, that's a fairly long time to be somewhere, 6 weeks. So yeah, that'll be really good to kind of hear for people that maybe have never been there about your experience there and how because I think every country has like good things and bad things. So I think there's some things that you've experienced over there that you're living here now that you can maybe bring over and help maybe incorporate in your life here. Yeah. So I think the things you said are things that we can definitely all. I mean, some of them are similar to things I think we've talked about before about like kind of like challenge yourself in different ways and finding
Definitely.
comfort and like discomfort. And then your third point, I mean, I think when you said, things will happen naturally, but I also think that maybe even kind of before that is like but you did put in the work. Like you made sure that you prepared as best as you could for like your appointment and, for getting all the documents and everything done. So I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Like you put in all the work, you did everything that you could imagine or possibly do to be ready for it. And then from there, I think there's like a feeling of, okay, well, let's just let nature take its course because I've done everything that I could do. So I do think effort is really important as well. I don't know
True.
what do you think about that?
True. I agree with you. And I think we did talk about this before is, do things that are uncomfortable to you. And going through this whole process absolutely effort is one thing. I think I did put in a lot of work and I did see the reward at the end of the process. But I was uncomfortable. Why? I even told my wife and she's like, "Hey, do you want me to go with me to the immigration office with you? Do you want me to go with you to this office, whatnot, just in case you don't understand?" And I told her, I was like, "No, I want to do this myself. I'm uncomfortable. I'm worried that I won't be able to understand or speak, or there might be a document in Chinese I can't even read at all." But it definitely, really boosted my confidence. It definitely really made me feel like, okay, you know what? That hard work, that effort did lead to a good reward. And it was uncomfortable. It was challenging for me. I'll be honest with you. After each appointment I had with the immigration office or wherever I was, afterwards, my head was just hurting. I was like, oh my gosh, that felt like 2 hours. But in reality, it was probably like a 20-minute session with them. My brain was just tired from trying to process everything in Chinese. It was uncomfortable, but I did see the reward at the end of all of
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, I think those are really, really helpful and interesting points that you came away with. So I think, yeah, it was really interesting hearing about your experience there. So I think before we kind of close things out, is there anything else, like any takeaways or anything else you wanted to kind of close out with?
No, I think really is, you asked a great point is how do we kind of incorporate this in our daily lives? Now that I'm back in the grind of things, kids are starting school soon. There's just so much going on. I barely have any time to, eat lunch or take a break. But I think what really matters is just taking tiny steps. I feel like everybody's mindset, for me personally is I want to take a giant leap. I want to see progress right now, but things don't always work out that way. It takes time. Um, you can't always see the progress that you're making, but if you take tiny steps and just kind of do it a little bit, chip away a little bit at a time, you will see some benefits and reward at the end. And I think that's another, hopefully that's some input to folks is start small, and then you'll start seeing some progress, and then from there you can expand and grow and kind of take bigger steps.
All right, that sounds great. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. If you could leave a review if you have any questions about our episode today, if you have any kind of feedback or maybe experiences that you can relate to and what we talked about today, we'd love to hear them. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear those as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll be back with a new episode ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you.